Chapter 3958. Strange style. For 3 days in a row, Yun Chujio fed the king-level fire spirit beasts. They ate and slept, and after sleeping they ate. It was as if they were living a godlike life. They wished that Yun Chujio would never leave. Yun Chujio saw that these foodies were too greedy, and before she left, she specially warned them, "Humans are evil, especially since you have the earth fire. Therefore, don't eat the food given to you by others. Also, even if there are people who look like me, you have to be careful to distinguish them so that you won't be poisoned to death. Do you know?" Those king-level fire spirit beasts rolled their eyes. This little girl had underestimated them too much. If they were easy to bully, they would have been captured long ago. Moreover, only she could get close to them. If it were other people, they wouldn't even be able to get close to their territory. Seeing their absent-minded expressions, Yun Chujio intentionally struck the lightning a few times, then took out a large kitchen knife and waved it around. Without these two things, it definitely wouldn't be me. Remember? Seeing Yun Chujio's serious expression, the king-level fire spirit beasts nodded their heads, indicating that they understood. Only then did Yun Chujio put away the earth fire that she had gathered and strolled out of the king-level fire spirit beast's territory. Elder Dongfang's eyes were almost piercing. Seeing that Yun Chujio had returned safely, the stone in his heart was finally lifted. The other disciples all thought that Yun Chujio was dead for sure. They did not expect that she had actually returned, and they were all extremely surprised. After Yun Chujio bowed to Elder Dongfang, she said with a smile, "Although those fire spirit beasts have a bad temper, they still kept their promise. I have already gathered the earth fire. We can return to the sect now." Elder Dongfang was surprised and delighted. He immediately led everyone back with a bright smile on his face. On the way, they met people from other sections. When they saw that Yun Chujio was safe and sound, they were all very surprised. When they heard that she had successfully gathered the earth fire of a king-level fire spirit beast, they couldn't help but feel a little envious. Of course, there were also people who had other thoughts. Since this Yun Chujio could exchange her food for the earth fire, could they do the same? Yun Chujio naturally saw through these people's thoughts and was too lazy to say anything. Even if she did, they would only think that their nameless sword sect wanted to eat alone. Since that was the case, why bother? When they were on the flying spirit tool, Yun Chujio secretly gave Elder Dongfang a portion of earth fire. Elder Dongfang naturally accepted it with a smile, and his impression of Yun Chujio improved. That evening, everyone arrived at the nameless sword sect. Yun Chujio first went to the bounty pavilion to hand over the earth fire in exchange for 10,000 sect contribution points. Only then did she return to her own courtyard. However, this fellow had left half of the earth fire in his storage ring as a precaution in case of an emergency. As soon as she pushed open the courtyard door, the drifters immediately jumped down from the swing and wanted to drill into Yun Chujio's glabella. Yun Chujio was so angry that she kept twitching. She held the relic and said, "Get lost. If you come any closer, I'll recite the scriptures." After Yun Chujio said that, her heart skipped a beat. Since these drifters were afraid of the relic, perhaps they were really afraid of the monks chanting the scriptures. Therefore, this guy racked his brain to think of a few verses of the Diamond Sutra and began to recite it. Needless to say, the murderous aura immediately drifted back to the swing and stopped coming in front of her. Yun Chujio was delighted. She planned to go to the sect to buy a few Buddhist scriptures from the place that sold sundries the next day. If she had nothing to do, she would let Dog 2 recite them. But face, what does this have to do with her? Besides, if these drifters didn't attack her, it would be quite fun. She would just keep them. Moreover, she was an ancient fierce beast, yet she was reciting Buddhist scriptures? This scene was very strange, okay? Chapter 3959. Buying Buddhist scriptures. Although Dog 2 tried its best to stop her, the next morning, Yun Chujio still went to the Nameless Sword Sect's exchange pavilion, which specialized in selling items. Although the exchange pavilion was very big, it was clearly divided into areas according to the items sold. Yun Chujio came to the sundry area and scanned the area, but she didn't find any Buddhist scriptures. Steward Lee, who was in charge of selling, saw her looking around and asked enthusiastically, Junior sister, what do you want to buy? Buddhist scriptures. Manager Lee, nothing. Are you sure your brain isn't sick? I've never heard of any cultivator buying Buddhist scriptures. When the other disciples who were buying things heard that Yun Chujio wanted to buy Buddhist scriptures, they were all dumbfounded. Some of the disciples who knew Yun Chujio whispered, "You don't know her, right? She is that Yun Chujio. She has always been different from others. I guess she has done too many wrong things, so she came to buy Buddhist scriptures." I don't think so. I heard that she rejected Tower Master Luchen's proposal to marry her. Could it be that she has seen through the secular world and wants to become a monk? What you said makes sense. I heard that there was a period of time when she was running around with a bald head. She is most likely going to become a monk. Yun Chujio did not care about the gossip of these people. What she was more concerned about was that the exchange pavilion did not have Buddhist scriptures. It seemed that she could only go to the bookstore in the town to take a look when she went out on a mission. Yun Chujio left the exchange pavilion somewhat disappointed. Not long after she walked out, she heard someone shouting from behind, Junior Sister Yun, wait a moment." Yun Chujio turned her head and saw a disciple wearing an inner sect uniform running over. Yun Chujio saw that he looked very unfamiliar and could not help but wonder why he stopped her. Just as Yun Chujio was puzzled, the disciple said with a smile, "Junior Sister Yun, I heard that you are looking for Buddhist scriptures? I happen to have one here. However, this price." The disciple rubbed his hands, looking as if he could not open his mouth. Yun Chujio raised her eyebrows. "The price is easy to negotiate. Let me see the goods first." Seeing that Yun Chujio agreed so readily, the disciple could not help but be overjoyed. He took out a sheepskin scroll from his storage ring and handed it to Yun Chujio. When Yun Chujio saw that the sheepskin scroll was made of the skin of a poisonous antelope, she could not help but be shocked. This thing seemed to have been passed down from the ancient times and should have been around for a long time. Yun Chujio untied the hemp rope tied to the sheepskin scroll. When she saw the words on it, she immediately understood why the disciple was willing to take it out. It was because the words on it were all ancient characters. The disciple was able to determine that this was a Buddhist scripture because there were some Buddha statues on it. Yun Chujio recognized some of the words on it sporadically. She could roughly determine that this was really a Buddhist scripture, but it was just that it was relatively old. Her heart skipped a beat. Although she couldn't recognize all of these characters, Dog 2 was an ancient beast, so she could buy it and let it read it. Although she had already made up her mind to buy this Buddhist scripture, her face showed some anger. "Senior brother, are you playing with me? These are all ancient characters, how can I recognize them?" The disciple said embarrassedly, "Junior Sister Yun, that, as the saying goes, if one is sincere, it will work. This Buddhist scripture doesn't necessarily have to be recognized to be effective. You can copy it a few times if you have nothing to do." Yun Chujio's expressions softened a little. "What you said makes sense. How many sect contribution points do you want? Let's say it first, if it's expensive, I won't buy it. Anyway, this thing is of little value." Chapter 3960. Urguzi recites the Buddhist scriptures. The disciple saw that Yun Chujio was not very interested and was afraid that the deal would be ruined. He quickly said, "Junior Sister Yun, you are also a person who knows the goods. This is a sheepskin scroll that has been passed down since ancient times. Back then, I also obtained it by chance. There is no need to say more about the dangers in it." Yun Chujio frowned. "Senior brother, I still have things to do and don't have time to listen to your story. Just tell me how much it is." "Junior Sister Yun, 200 sect contribution points. What do you think?" The disciple quickly stretched out 2 fingers and said nervously. When he first got this thing, he was ecstatic. He thought that he had gotten something amazing. However, both the manager of the Bounty Pavilion and the Exchange Pavilion thought that this thing was useless. At most, he would only pay 50 sect contribution points to buy it. He was not willing to sell it. Today, when he saw that Yun Chujio was actually looking for Buddhist scriptures, he immediately felt that an opportunity had come. Initially, he wanted to ask for 500 sect contribution points, but when he saw Yun Chujio's disdainful look, he could only change his mind and ask for 200 sect contribution points. Although Yun Chujio felt that 200 sect contribution points was not expensive, she still bargained with that disciple. In the end, she bought the sheepskin scroll at a price of 180 points. After returning to the courtyard, Yun Chujio saw the drifters jumping up and down on the swing. She immediately revealed a sinister smile. Damn drifters, they'll send you all away very soon. After Yun Chujio released Buttface, she threw the newly obtained sheepskin scroll to Buttface. Buttface, here, read it. Buttface blinked his dog eyes and said with some shame, "Little fairy, I don't know how to read." It would be a ghost if Yun Chujio believed him. He was not like Xiao Hanyo, who were just young and lost part of their inheritance. How could a mature ancient beast not know ancient characters? Either you read it for me obediently, or you don't have to eat tonight. Seeing that Yun Chujio did not look like she was joking, Buttface could only open the sheepskin scroll bitterly. It was a great ancient beast, but it had to recite Buddhist scriptures. It was a laughing stock. Buttface began to stutter as he recited the Buddhist scriptures. Buddhist scriptures were difficult to understand to begin with, and coupled with the fact that Buttface was a half-baked illiterate, it was a tragic sight to see. Yun Chujio finally understood that Buttface wasn't completely lying when he said he couldn't read. This fellow probably couldn't read more than her. The kitten in the spirit beast bag couldn't help but twitch its lips as it listened to Buttface's stuttering recitation. Fierce beasts were a bunch of coquettish bitches. As expected, they couldn't compare to the noble origins of their divine beasts. They couldn't even recognize the words. How embarrassing! After muttering for a while, Yun Chujio realized that not only did the drifters not escape, but they were also jumping around with great interest, as if they were playing with monkeys. Yun Chujio was furious. She might as well throw the sheepskin scroll into her storage ring. She was prepared to buy some Buddhist scriptures that she knew when she had the chance. She would definitely chase these drifters away. What Yun Chujio didn't notice was that there was a trace of craftiness in Buttface's dog eyes. He felt that he was simply awesome. He had finally gotten rid of the fate of reciting scriptures. Although he was labeled as a semi-illiterate, it was still 100 times better than the miserable reciting of scriptures. Since she didn't have any Buddhist scriptures, the plan to chase away the drifters could only be put on hold temporarily. Yun Chujio could only let the murderous aura continue to roil in the courtyard. Chapter 3961. 3 puppet discs. In the next few days, everything was peaceful. However, 2 major events had happened in the northern continent. One was that Tower Master Luochen of the 9 Pavilions had been stabbed by someone. It was said that he would not be able to recover for at least 2 to 3 months. Furthermore, some of the powers of the 9 Pavilions had also been taken down by someone. The 9 Pavilions were unable to take care of themselves for the time being. As for the other matter, the disciples of Xuanji sect, Flying Flower Island, and a few other sects had rashly provoked the King Fire Essence Beast, resulting in heavy casualties. Yun Chujio rubbed her chin and pondered for a moment. The first thing was probably done by the gigolo. The second thing was most likely that those people saw that she had easily obtained the King-level Fire Essence Beast's Earth Fire, so they wanted to try their luck, and then it was tragic. It was just a pity that the gigolo wasn't able to kill that piece of trash, Lan Luochen. Thinking of Lan Luochen, Yun Chujio thought of the puppets number 1, number 2, and number 3 that had self-destructed. She sighed. She had not been able to find the right materials for the puppets. Otherwise, she would have created 3 more puppets. Sigh, even if they were created, they would not be the original puppets anymore. They had completely disappeared. However, it was fine to make 3 puppet discs first. When there was a suitable shell, she could just install the puppet discs. Thinking of this, Yun Chujio began to make the puppet discs. The murderous aura was curiously jumping around. Yun Chujio couldn't be bothered with them and continued to make the puppet discs by herself. Soon, the final step of making the puppet discs was to separate 3 strands of soul consciousness and inject them into the puppet discs. Only then would the puppets have intelligence. Yun Chujio was afraid that the drifters would cause trouble, so she deliberately placed the relics in front of her and asked Buttface to keep an eye on the drifters to prevent them from taking the opportunity to attack her. A moment later, Yun Chujio injected the 3 wisps of her consciousness into the puppet disc. However, something unexpected happened. The murderous aura ignored the threat of the relic and ran away with the 3 puppet discs. They ran away. They ran away. Yun Chujio was so angry that she almost fainted. She didn't care much and chased after them. Unfortunately, she didn't know how the murderous aura did it. Not only did they disappear, but the 3 puppet discs also disappeared. Buttface said eagerly, "Little fairy, you don't have to worry. Your spiritual sense is in those puppet discs. Try using your spiritual sense and you'll definitely find their hiding place. You'll just destroy their nest." Yun Chujio thought that it made sense, so her spiritual sense was getting weaker and weaker. She chose a direction and chased after them. After chasing after them, she never expected that the final location of the murderous aura was actually the sword pool. Yun Chujio's heart skipped a beat. The reason why the large kitchen knife had attracted so much murderous aura was most likely because the large kitchen knife had swallowed too much sword light. Yun Chujio stood by the sword pool and watched the murderous aura bounce back and forth in the sword pool. Moreover, it even tossed the 3 puppet plates around like toys. Yun Chujio was so angry that she almost vomited blood. Yun Chujio had a stomach full of bad ideas. She had never suffered such a big loss before. Now, she was actually fooled by these drifters. One could imagine the fury in her heart. She gritted her teeth and looked at the jumping drifters. She should have been able to command the puppet discs. After all, there was a strand of her spiritual sense in them. However, the murderous aura was so thick that she had no way to command the puppet discs. Chapter 3962 Repayment of Debts. Just as Yun Chujio was gnashing her teeth and watching, someone walked over. Yun Chujio was originally worried that the drifters and the puppet discs would be discovered, but when she looked up, there were no more drifters and puppet discs, only flickering sword lights. "Yun Chujio, what are you doing here? Leave quickly." A shout came from behind. Yun Chujio turned around and saw that it was Manager Li from the sword pool who had spoken. Yun Chujio was already full of anger. Moreover, she had let Manager Li and his son have their way last time because she was afraid that her killing intent would leak out. They had locked her in the bitter cold cave, and now they were actually provoking her? They were really courting death. She sneered and said, "Manager Li, this sword pool doesn't belong to your Li family, right? What's wrong with me standing here?" Manager Li choked. However, he quickly said with a gloomy face, "Yun Chujio, every time you approach the sword pool, something happens to the sword pool. Perhaps it's because you have the heavenly thunder spirit root that you brought disaster. If you know your place, then quickly leave the sword pool." When the disciples who were cultivating near the sword pool heard the dispute between the two, they looked at Yun Chujio with a subtle look. Yes, they also heard that Yun Chujio had the heavenly thunder spirit root, which was not tolerated by the heavenly Tao. The accident in the sword pool happened after she entered the sect. Could it really be because of her? While the disciples were whispering among themselves, they heard Yun Chujio chuckle a few times. "Manager Li, according to what you said, I think the culprit is you. Maybe it's because you're too wicked. That's why the sword pool that you're in charge of has problems time and time again. You're a jinx." Yun Chujio's way of returning the favor angered Manager Li so much that his face turned red. He gritted his teeth and said, "I won't argue with you. In short, all the disciples can only cultivate on the flat ground below. They can't go near the sword pool. Those who violate it will be severely punished." Yun Chujio shrugged her shoulders. "Does that include you? After all, if a jinx like you goes near the sword pool every day, perhaps the last sword light in the sword pool will disappear too." Manager Li was so angry that he was gnashing his teeth. Just as he was about to say something, Yun Chujio took out a piece of paper from her storage ring and waved it. "Oh right, your son owes me 2 million upper-grade spirit stones. The 3-month deadline is coming up soon. If he still doesn't repay me, I will have to collect his sect's resources on his behalf." Manager Li couldn't believe his eyes. Hasn't this loan already been torn up in the discipline hall?" "Yes, the previous one was indeed torn up. Li Zhuangji borrowed it from me later. Hurry up and pay me back." Yun Chujio sneered in her heart. She tore up nothing but a piece of waste paper back then. Was she trying to scheme against her? Dream on. Manager Lee thought for a moment and understood that he had been deceived by Yun Chujio that day. He was filled with hatred and regret. It would have been great if he had taken a good look at it back then. He would not have let this wretched girl take advantage of the loophole. Yun Chujio, this debit note was clearly signed by you when you threatened Zhuangzi that day. It can't be counted at all. If you know your place, return the debit note to me immediately. Otherwise, if you cause trouble in the discipline hall, you won't have a good ending. Yun Chujio put away the note again and said with a smile, the original note has been torn up in front of everyone. This note was written by Li Zhuangzi willingly. It's only right and proper to repay a debt. Were you going to sue? I'm also reasonable. I advise you to pay back the money quickly if you have the time. After all, intersect resources are still quite important to that trash Li Zhuangzi. Chapter 3963. Play with these drifters to death. After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she swaggered off. Manager Lee, who had remained at the same spot, wanted nothing more than to chase after her and slap her to death. He stared at Yun Chujio's back viciously. Darn girl, keep showing off. Soon you'll be in trouble. Because the drifter had stolen the 3 puppet discs, Yun Chujio was still very depressed even though she had dissed Manager Lee for a while. The 3 puppet discs had been sucked into the sword pool by the murderous aura. There was no way for her to snatch them back. Could it be that she could only stare and suffer? What made Yun Chujio even angrier was that the moment she stepped into the courtyard, the drifters acted as if nothing had happened and followed her into the courtyard. Furthermore, they were jumping around her, almost infuriating Hei Shinjio to death. She decided to get a Buddhist scripture no matter what, or else she would definitely be angered to death by these drifters. Thinking of this, she directly went to the lower house's bounty pavilion and issued a mission. Not only did she request to buy Buddhist scriptures, but she also wanted to buy Buddhist beads, wooden fish, and kasaya. This time, everyone felt that Yun Chujio was going to become a monk. However, this kasaya was used by a monk, so she did not seem to need it, right? However, regardless of whether she could use it or not, this mission was much easier to complete than other missions. As long as she went out to carry out the mission, she could easily buy it. Moreover, the reward for the sect contribution points was not low. Only a fool would not accept it. Therefore, the lower house's bounty pavilion was almost overcrowded with people who accepted the mission. Fortunately, when Yun Chujio issued the mission, she specified the number of people and the limit of the number of people. Otherwise, the roof of the bounty pavilion would have been overturned. Soon, Yun Chujio received the Buddhist scriptures and other items that she had been longing for. A sinister smile immediately appeared on this guy's face. Drifters, your good days are coming to an end. Yun Chujio returned to the courtyard valiantly. She looked at the drifters who had gathered around her with contempt and then entered the house. A moment later, Yun Chujio walked out of the house wearing a kasaya and a Buddhist bead hanging around her neck. She knocked on the wooden fish in her hand and chanted Buddhist scriptures. Seeing this, the killing aura first stopped for a moment, then ran in all directions. The courtyard finally returned to its usual calm. Yun Chujio was very proud. Little girl, you still want to fight with me? I'll play you to death. The killing aura was most likely really frightened. It had not come to cause trouble for 2 days in a row. On the contrary, Dog 2 was not used to it. Little fairy, why do I feel empty after these drifters disappeared? Dog 2 said with some melancholy. Yun Chujio glanced at him. Because you're cheap. Buttface said, Little fairy, you're so bad. How can you flirt with a baby? Yun Chujio. Just as Yun Chujio was about to deal with Buttface, clusters of red mist drifted into the yard stealthily. Yun Chujio sneered. You guys really don't remember. As she spoke, she took out the wooden fish and began to recite the scriptures. As expected, the murderous aura floated out of the courtyard. Unfortunately, before Yun Chujio could be happy, it floated back again. Yun Chujio had no choice but to recite the scriptures again. The drifters ran away again. When she stopped, the drifters floated back again. In the end, He Xinjia's throat was almost smoking, but she could not drive away the murderous aura completely. The murderous aura was deliberately jumping around in front of Yun Chujio. It was obviously meant to anger her. Yun Chujio was so angry that she was about to explode. Suddenly, she had an idea. She went into the room and fiddled with it for a while, then placed a few recording stones on the stone table. The sound of Yun Chujio chanting was coming from inside. Chapter 3964. Practicing the sword with the drifter. This move of Yun Chujio's was clearly visible. The continuous chanting immediately caused the murderous aura to roll out of the courtyard impatiently and never return. Yun Chujio placed her hands on her waist and sneered, "Even Wu Yun is not my match. You drifters still want to fight with me? I'll play you to death." However, Yun Chujio quickly realized the problem. Although the chanting could drive away the murderous aura, it was too annoying to keep it playing. Moreover, the murderous aura was very good at exploiting loopholes. Once Yun Chujio put away the recording stones, the murderous aura would sneak in and jump around. After a few times, He Xinjiao was terrified. She comforted herself. Anyway, she would not stay in the Nameless Sword sect for a long time. When she left the Nameless Sword sect, the drifters would naturally not follow her. Now, she would just let it be. If she had this kind of kung fu, she might as well practice her sword skills. When the killing aura saw that Yun Chujio was unexpectedly not playing with them anymore, it was instantly unhappy. Thus, when Yun Chujio was practicing her sword, they would jump up and down to cause trouble. When Yun Chujio saw this, she simply treated these drifters as imaginary enemies. Of course, they were not imaginary enemies. They were simply enemies, okay? Although Yun Chujio's sword technique was not bad, it was not as fast as those drifters. Moreover, even if she stabbed them, the damage to them would be extremely limited. Seeing this, the murderous aura became even more joyful. In Yun Chujio's eyes, they were mocking her swordsmanship for being too poor. Yun Chujio's ruthlessness was on the rise. Every day, other than eating, sleeping, and necessary going out, she would use these drifters to practice her swordsmanship. What made her so angry was that after she practiced her swordsmanship with all her might, not only did she not do anything to these drifters, but more and more of them drifted into her courtyard. She could not live like this anymore. On this day, Yun Chujio was practicing her sword with the drifters when the drifters suddenly disappeared. Yun Chujio knew that there was an 80% chance that someone had come to visit her. Sure enough, when she opened the courtyard door, she saw that Zhao Hui had arrived. The withered branches and leaves in Yun Chujio's courtyard had all been burned by her. Now, there was nothing in the courtyard except for a swing and a stone table. It was quite refreshing. Zhao Hui smiled and said, "Junior Sister Yun, I wanted to send you a message, but I came to find you for no reason. I didn't disturb you, did I?" Yun Chujio smiled and said, "Senior brother Zhao, you're too polite. What's the matter?" The monthly competition of the inner sect will be held in 2 days. What's your plan, Junior Sister Yun? Do you want to break the ranking? Zhao Hui sat down and said. After hearing Zhao Hui's words, Yun Chujio remembered that the inner sect had a competition every month. All inner sect disciples could participate in the competition. However, the format of the competition was a bit special. The inner sect had a clear sky ranking. According to the spiritual power level and the previous competition results, the low-ranked disciples could challenge the high-ranked disciples, and they had to accept the challenge. If the 10th-ranked disciple successfully challenged the 8th-ranked disciple, then the positions of the 2 disciples would be switched, and so on. The monthly inner sect competition was also the most lively time in the inner sect. Everyone was talking about which one of the top-ranked disciples had been defeated, or that someone had successfully challenged someone. Yun Chujio had been competing with those drifters recently, so she was not very interested in the clear sky role. She said casually, "I'm not interested in the clear sky role. Why does senior brother Zhao want to try it?" Chapter 3965. What's my rank? Zhao Hui smiled and said, "I want to try. Although there are many old disciples in the inner sect and my rank is above 3,000, It's still a kind of motivation to advance a few places. Hearing Zhao Hu's words, Yun Chujio suddenly remembered something and asked curiously, "Senior brother Zhao, I really didn't pay attention to this so-called proclamation of Azure Sky. Well, what's my rank?" Zhao Hu's face slightly stiffened. He coughed dryly and said, "Junior sister Yun, your ranking is about the same as mine. I'm ranked 3,251, and you're ranked 3,289. Yun Chujio nodded and asked again, "Then how many inner sect disciples are there?" Zhao Hu's face stiffened even more. He paused for a moment before saying, 3,289. Yun Chujio nodded and then thought, a total of 3,289? This fellow slammed the stone table. What? Then wouldn't I be in last place? Zhao Hui thought to himself, you only know that now. Otherwise, why would he come over and invite her to break through the ranking together? He wanted her to get out of the awkward position of being in last place as soon as possible. Zhao Hui originally thought that after Yun Chujio found out that she was in last place, she would definitely break through the ranking. However, Yun Chujio said, so be it. There's no difference between second and last place. In any case, she's not in first place. Zhao Hui, there's a big difference now, okay? Junior sister Yun, you might not know this, but the ranking on the proclamation of Azure Sky is not as simple as it sounds. It's also related to the sect missions and some trial missions. If you're ranked lower, you'll lose a lot of opportunities. The inner sect disciples ranked in the top 10 have a higher chance of being accepted as true disciples by the elders. Therefore, the competition for the top 10 positions on the proclamation of Azure Sky has always been very intense. Also, if you continue to be ranked at the bottom, there's a high chance that you'll be eliminated to the outer sect during the annual assessment. Therefore, you'd better rush the ranking. However, you can't use any external forces to rush the ranking. You can just pick some disciples who are ranked lower and challenge them. Yun Chujio frowned. It was so troublesome. Then she would go and take a look first. Even if she didn't challenge the ranking this time, it would still be good to see the tricks behind it. Therefore, Yun Chujio said to Zhao Hui, then I will go and take a look at it. At least I can help you cheer for them. The two of them chatted for a while more before Zhao Hui stood up and left. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. The monthly competition of the inner sect began. When Yun Chujio arrived at the square of the middle courtyard, she saw that there were already 3 competition stages set up in the square, and some of the competition stages had already started. Yun Chujio could not help but feel a little puzzled. There were more than 3,000 disciples in the inner sect, and there were only 3 competition stages here. Wouldn't the competition last for a few days? However, she soon realized that not everyone could enter the competition stage. Those who participated in the challenge had to pay a certain amount of sect contribution points. Otherwise, they would not be qualified to challenge. Moreover, those who wanted to challenge the disciples ranked higher on the proclamation of Azure Sky would have to pay more sect contribution points. Therefore, those who did not have absolute confidence in winning would not easily challenge them. Just as Yun Chujio was looking around curiously, Zhao Hui squeezed out from the crowd. He said somewhat excitedly, Junior sister Yun, the strength of this inner sect disciple is indeed much higher than that of the outer sect. I just watched a challenge of more than 2,000 people and felt that I benefited a lot. As soon as Zhao Hu's words fell, a few ear-piercing laughter rang out. One of the male ducks mockingly said, where did this fool come from? Isn't this nonsense? If an inner sect disciple is weaker than an outer sect disciple, how can he be called an inner sect? Chapter 3966. Then he'll challenge you. Zhao Hu's face turned red from the words. He followed the voice and saw 5 inner sect disciples looking at him mockingly. The male voice that spoke earlier continued, what are you looking at? Am I wrong? Judging from your spiritual power, you must be ranked above 3,000. I advise you not to go on the competition stage. It's a waste of contribution points to go on. Although Zhao Hu's face was red with anger, he did not want to cause any more trouble. Just as he was about to leave with Yun Chujio, he heard the man with the croaky voice say, Tiskiske, isn't this the last place Yun Chujio? Why, are you here to challenge the second from the bottom? Ha! Another person echoed, second from the bottom? I'm afraid she can't even defeat the second from the bottom. I heard that she was able to enter the inner sect by relying on some kind of spiritual beast's tricks. She doesn't deserve to be an inner sect disciple at all. Not to mention an inner sect disciple. Back then, she probably relied on some low-level tricks to get through the 9-to-death road to ascend to heaven. In my opinion, she doesn't even deserve to be an outer sect disciple. Zhao Hui felt a little cold. He turned his head to look at Yun Chujio and immediately shrunk his neck in fear. He saw that Yun Chujio's eyes were filled with ice-cold killing intent. He thought to himself, although junior sister Yun was quite fierce in the past, she did not have such a fierce aura. This was too scary. However, those 5 people were obviously old inner sect disciples. He did not know how strong they were, so it was better not to offend them. Thinking of this, Zhao Hui wanted to drag Yun Chujio away. A wise man would not take a loss in front of him. There was still time in the future, and he would deal with them when he had the chance. However, he heard Yun Chujio say indifferently, "Who is the highest ranked among you?" Hearing Yun Chujio's question, the people with the male duck voice burst into ear-piercing laughter. The male duck voice said proudly, "No, I am the highest ranked among this group of brothers. I am ranked 1850 on the proclamation of Azure Sky." When Yun Chujio said this, not only the man with the croaky voice, but even Zhao Hui was stunned. "Great Aunt, are you crazy?" "Yes, you're quite powerful, but the premise is that you have to use spiritual beasts and spiritual pets. Just by relying on spiritual power and sword skills, how can you be the opponent of this man with the croaky voice? Although his ranking can only be considered average, but you are ranked in the top 3,000. The difference in strength is too great." After the man with the croaky voice was stunned for a moment, he laughed so hard that he almost choked. "Ha ha, did you hear that? This trash actually said that she wants to challenge me? I'm dying of laughter. I've seen people who overestimate their own abilities, but this is the first time I've seen someone who overestimates their own abilities. A person ranked at the bottom of 3,000 actually dared to challenge someone ranked at 1,800? She's really crazy." Zhao Hui tugged on Yun Chujio's sleeve and said in a low voice, "Junior sister Yun, don't be rash. Let's go." Yun Chujio nodded and actually turned around to leave with Zhao Hui. When the man with the croaky voice saw that, he immediately curled his lips and said, "Did you see that? I told you that she was sick just now. How would a trash like her dare to challenge me?" However, a moment later, the person next to the man with the croaky voice pointed at the bulletin board not far away and said, "Senior Brother Wu, look. That Yun Chujio actually registered to challenge you." Chapter 3967 was a free gift. The man's voice followed the direction of the man's finger and saw that Yun Chujio had challenged him at the bottom of the bulletin board. At the same time, the man's identity jade plate started to tremble. He was told that someone had challenged him and he was given an hour to reach the second stage. The man with the duck voice obviously did not expect that Yun Chujio would really challenge him. He sneered disdainfully and said, "Brothers, since this brat is courting death, then I will teach her a lesson. It will be a good opportunity for senior brother Chen Bufan to vent his anger." The other people chimed in. They all thought that Yun Chujio was most likely crazy. She had overestimated herself. The person ranked last actually wanted to challenge senior brother Wu? She was really looking for trouble. On the other side, Zhao Hui looked at Yun Chujio with a dumbfounded expression. He originally thought that Yun Chujio had given up on the idea of challenging the man with the croaky voice after he left. Who would have thought that she would actually walk straight to the registration area? Although Yun Chujio did not know the man with the croaky voice's name, she knew his ranking and immediately paid her contribution points to register. Zhao Hui wanted to stop her, but he was frightened by Yun Chujio's slightly murderous gaze and watched her register. At this moment, many people saw the news on the bulletin board. It spread from 1 to 10, from 10 to 100, instantly causing a huge uproar. "Did you hear? That Yun Chujio, who is ranked last, wants to challenge Wu Zhong, who is ranked at 1850. Is she crazy? She is either crazy or stupid. That Yun Chujio is ranked 3,289, behind Wu Zhong who is ranked 1,400. It would be a miracle if she could win. Exactly. That Wu Zhong is at the 3rd level of the Spirit Wu realm, while Yun Chujio is at the 3rd level of the Spirit Communication realm. There is a huge gap between them. The gap between them is like an adult and an infant. Wu Zhong can defeat Yun Chujio even with 50% of his strength. Zhao Hui listened to the discussions of the crowd and was about to cry. They were speaking from his heart. Junior sister Yun was courting death. And it was the kind of death that would never come back. Zhao Hui, what the hell? Moreover, betting on you winning was no different from throwing money away. Junior sister Yun, you better be careful. It was one thing for you to be abused on the stage, but you had to lose 1,000,000 high-grade spirit stones. What are you trying to do? Yun Chujio glanced at him and curled the corners of her lips. Senior brother Zhao, just do as I say. Don't blame junior sister for not reminding you. If you want to get rich, then bet on me winning and bet more. After saying that, Yun Chujio transferred 1,000,000 spirit stones to Zhao Hui and then jumped onto the second stage. Zhao Hui sighed and thought, forget it. Junior sister Yun doesn't seem like someone who's short of money anyway. If you want to waste money, then waste it. There were many people surrounding the northeast corner of the square. They were all disciples who were betting. During the monthly inner sect competition, many disciples came to bet. Some had good eyesight and could earn a small sum every month. When Zhao Hui said that he would bet 1,000,000 high-grade spirit stones on Yun Chujio to win, those disciples were almost going crazy with joy. Today was really a good day. A big fat sheep actually came. What were they waiting for? Hurry up and bet on Wu Zhong to win. This was no different from giving money away for free. Chapter 3968, 3 moves. Zhao Hui looked at the crowd fighting to place their bets, and then looked at Yun Chujio, who was the only one betting on herself. Gritting his teeth, he took out 10,000 high-grade spirit stones and placed it on Yun Chujio. He didn't do it for the sake of making a fortune. These 10,000 high-grade spirit stones were definitely going to go down the drain. He just wanted to express his attitude so that the situation wouldn't be so ugly. After Zhao Hui placed his bet, he returned to the second stage. At this time, Wu Zhong had already completed the procedures and stepped onto the stage. Almost everyone thought that there was no suspense in this competition, so there weren't many people watching the competition below the stage. Moreover, most of the people inside were disciples who had placed their bets. Those disciples were laughing and shouting at Wu Zhong, "Senior brother Wu, we all bet on you to win. Don't fail miserably." Wu Zhong smiled contemptuously and said with a croaky voice, "Don't worry, I, Wu Zhong, can win this trash even with my eyes closed. Just wait to receive the money." Those disciples became even more noisy. Some even shouted at Yun Chujio, "Yun Chujio, you're really generous. You actually gave us 1,000,000 upper-grade spirit stones for free. Why don't you challenge us after you challenge senior brother Wu?" Hearing these people's teasing, Zhao Hui felt both angry and helpless. He grumbled in his heart, "Junior martial sister Yun, oh junior martial sister Yun, what are you trying to achieve? You're usually a smart person, why are you so muddle-headed today?" Just as he was thinking, he heard Yun Chujio say indifferently, "Senior martial brother Zhao, remember the person who shouted for me to challenge them just now. They'll challenge them one by one." Zhao Hui agreed with a dumbfounded look. He thought to himself, you'd better pass Wu Zhong's test first. He had no other extravagant hopes now. He only hoped that Yun Chujio would not suffer too serious of an injury. Wu Zhong was about to say a few sarcastic words when the steward in charge of the competition rang the copper bell, indicating that the two of them could start the competition. If it were an ordinary person, they would have rejected Wu Zhong's offer. However, Hei Xinjiu never took the ordinary path. She curled her lips and said, "All right, thank you very much, senior brother Wu." Wu Zhong's so-called "let me have 3 moves" was not to stand there and wait to be beaten. It was just to dodge and not fight back. Yun Chujio casually took out a sword from her storage ring and stabbed it at Wu Zhong. Wu Zhong easily dodged Yun Chujio's first move, and his expression became even more relaxed. The disciples watching from below the stage all curled their lips. Although Yun Chujia's sword moves are normal, their speed is too slow. However, it's also true. Yun Chujia's spiritual power is too low, and her speed isn't that fast. Wu Zhong's thoughts were similar to those of these people. Initially, he still had a trace of fear in his heart, but now, he saw that Yun Chujio was only SS. At this time, Yun Chujia's second move had also arrived. Although it was a little more flashy than the first move, it did not have any actual attack power, not to mention hurting Wu Zhong in the slightest. Wu Zhong's expression became even more relaxed. He felt that this match was simply too easy to win. If he had known earlier, he would have let others bet on him to win. What a miscalculation. Chapter 3969. Flaws. Just as Wu Zhong was thinking, he suddenly lost sight of Yun Chujio. Just as he was in a daze, a chill came from behind him. He subconsciously leaped forward. He did not expect the chill to follow closely behind him. The bad thing was that he was already at the edge of the competition stage. If he turned around and used his sword to block, he could resolve this move. However, he was too careless and did not even hold the treasured sword in his hand. At this moment, it was already too late for him to summon the treasured sword. He could only try his best to dodge to the side, and most of his body avoided it. However, his left shoulder was cut by the blade of the sword, and blood instantly splattered everywhere. The crowd below the stage was shocked by this unexpected turn of events. They really could not believe that Yun Chujio had actually injured Wu Zhong first. How was this possible? They recalled the third move that Yun Chujio had used earlier. The sword move was an ordinary 7-star sword technique, but her speed was too fast. Otherwise, Wu Zhong would not have been unable to react in time. However, everyone still felt that there was no suspense in this match. Even though Yun Chujio had injured Wu Zhong, the injury on her left shoulder did not have much of an effect. Furthermore, Wu Zhong had only dodged and not attacked earlier. His strength was naturally greatly reduced. From now on, it was the real battle. Wu Zhong thought the same. His face was somewhat angry from embarrassment. He did not expect that he would be careless for a moment and actually get injured by this slut. Let's see how he will deal with her later. Wu Zhong's eyes revealed a sinister look. He raised his sword and started to fight with Yun Chujio. Zhao Hui was so nervous that his forehead was covered in sweat. Although he was somewhat surprised that Yun Chujio's movement technique was so fast, the difference in spiritual power between the two of them was too big. As time went on, junior sister Yun would definitely lose. Very quickly, 15 minutes passed. Wu Zhong became more and more courageous as he fought. On the other hand, although Yun Chujio's movement technique was still considered agile, it was very obvious that her speed had slowed down. In less than 10 moves, she would definitely lose. Those disciples who had placed bets were already grinning from ear to ear. They could immediately split the 1,010,000 spirit stones. This was great. At this moment, Yun Chujio revealed an obvious flaw. Her entire left shoulder was empty. Seeing this, Wu Zhong was overjoyed. This was his chance. He couldn't wait to use all his strength to stab Yun Chujio's left shoulder. Wu Zhong's eyes revealed a vicious look. This slut had injured his left shoulder, so he would chop off her arm. He would make her a complete waste in the future. Zhao Hui was so scared that he did not even dare to look. There was no way to dodge this move. There was an 80% chance that junior sister Yun's left arm could not be saved. However, it was her fault for overestimating herself. She could not blame anyone else. Wu Zhong's sword tip was getting closer and closer to Yun Chujio's shoulder. 3 feet, 1 foot, 7 inches, 3 inches. Just when the sword tip was about to stab at Yun Chujio's shoulder, Yun Chujio avoided the sword tip at an extremely tricky angle. At the same time, the sword in her hand stabbed at Wu Zhong's throat. Wu Zhong used all his strength to stab at Yun Chujio, so his center of gravity was tilted toward Yun Chujio. Although he wanted to dodge, he couldn't control his body at all. He could only raise his left arm to take the attack head-on. Chapter 3970. junior sister Yun had actually won. Wu Zhong had begged for mercy. He had originally wanted to cut off Yun Chujio's arm, but he did not expect that Yun Chujio would cut off her left arm in the end. Fortunately, it was her left arm. If it was her right arm, then it would be completely crippled. Although the broken left arm could be reattached with bone-connecting ointment, it was impossible to recover to its original extent. Yun Chujio curled the corners of her lips and said indifferently, "Wu Zhong, if it weren't for the sect rules forbidding fellow disciples from killing each other, my sword just now wouldn't have only cut off your left arm. TSK, you are really a waste. Not to mention that you only have one arm left to use in the future. Even if you have 3 heads and 6 arms, you wouldn't be my match. If you want to take revenge, I will accompany you at any time." Wu Zhong had already lost a lot of blood. Now that he was provoked by Yun Chujio's words, he directly fainted and died on the competition stage. His scoundrels immediately jumped onto the stage and carried him to the treatment room. However, before they left, they looked at Yun Chujio as if they had been poisoned. Yun Chujio laughed lightly and said, "What? Do you want to fight for him? I'm ready for you to challenge me at any time." A bunch of trash. Those people were so angry that they gritted their teeth. However, the most important thing now was to treat Wu Zhong, so they glared at Yun Chujio for a few times before leaving in a hurry. The disciples below the stage who were watching the show were all dead silent at first, and then someone cried out, "It's over. I bet 20,000 high-grade spirit stones on Wu Zhong. Now it's all gone. I bet more than you, and I've lost miserably this time. If I had known earlier, I would have bet on Yun Chujio to win. It's still that cunning Zhao Hui, he's going to be rich this time." Zhao Hui was dizzy. Junior sister Yun actually won? She really won? He had just estimated that although he had only bet 10,000 high-grade spirit stones, he could at least get 50,000 high-grade spirit stones because of the large number of disciples who bet on Wu Zhong to win. He was so regretful that his intestines turned green. If he had known earlier, he would have bet 1 million just like junior sister Yun. Just as Zhao Hui was regretting his decision, Yun Chujio had already jumped down from the competition stage and came to his side. "Senior brother Zhao, I asked you to remember those people who were shouting just now. Did you remember?" Zhao Hui was stunned for a moment. Of course, he did not remember. He thought that Yun Chujio was just joking. Moreover, the reason why Yun Chujio was able to win against Wu Zhong was because Wu Zhong had underestimated his opponent. If he had not been fooled. In the end, the probability of Yun Chujio losing was higher. The disciples who had placed their bets were already red-eyed from the loss. When they heard Yun Chujio's words, a few of them immediately snorted coldly and said, "It was just a lucky win. Do you really think you are that great?" That's right. Wu Zhong was just too careless. Otherwise, do you think you can beat him? Yun Chujio glanced at them. "Stop talking nonsense. Which one of you wants to challenge me? Or who wants to be challenged by me?" When the disciples saw that Yun Chujio was serious, they immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Although they didn't think that Yun Chujio was very powerful, they didn't plan to go on stage in the first place. There was no need to waste the sect contribution points on her. Besides, if they lost, it would be too embarrassing. Seeing this, Yun Chujio laughed lightly. "Senior brother Zhao, my mission is complete. I reckon that I won't need to participate in the competition for half a year. Have you chosen your opponent yet?" Chapter 3971. "I challenge you," Zhao Hui said with a stiff expression. "Junior sister Yun, I'm afraid you're thinking too simply. Right now, you're like a shining target. The disciples behind you will definitely fight to challenge you. Don't even think about stopping." Yun Chujio burst into laughter. "Senior brother Zhao, you're thinking too simply. Think about it. If those people with a huge disparity in rankings challenge me, then they will replace me as the target. Why would they waste their contribution points to challenge me? If the rankings were close to mine, then there would be no need for them to challenge me, so I'm very safe now. On the contrary, some people who usually have a grudge against me might challenge me, but this is unavoidable. Since that's the case, what do I have to worry about?" Zhao Hui was stunned for a while, And then he felt that what Yun Chujio said made sense. It made sense. Otherwise, the surrounding disciples would not have left dejectedly. It was obvious that they did not plan to waste their sect contribution points on Yun Chujio. The two of them chatted for a while more. In the afternoon, Zhao Hui challenged a disciple who was ranked dozens of places higher than him. Although he went through a lot of trouble, he still won in the end. Zhao Hui's mood was so good that he was about to fly. Not only did he rise a few dozen places, but he also earned an additional 40,000 upper-grade spirit stones. It was perfect. On the way back to the dormitory, they were stopped by someone. Yun Chujio saw the short and fat man in the lead and laughed lightly. "Isn't this senior brother Chen Bufan? What? Are you here to return my spirit stones?" Yun Chujio said lightly, "I was wondering why that Wu Zhong was looking for trouble. So it was you who instigated him. You want to challenge me? No problem, I will wait for you. As long as you don't regret it." After saying that, Yun Chujio immediately led Zhao Hui and walked past Chen Bufan and the others. She was not afraid that these people would suddenly attack her. If they really fought, she would not be the one to suffer. Chen Bufan was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He did not instigate Wu Zhong to look for trouble, but Wu Zhong was also trying to help him vent his anger. Now that he had lost an arm, he naturally could not do nothing. Otherwise, he would not be able to survive in the future, therefore he had to go up to the competition stage with Yun Chujio to avenge Wu Zhong. After walking for a while, Zhao Hui said worriedly, "Junior sister Yun, that Chen Bufan's ranking is around 2,000. Although he's not as good as that Wu Zhong, he's not bad either. You have to be careful tomorrow. A wise man doesn't take a loss when the odds are against him. If you really can't do it, just admit defeat." Yun Chujio smiled faintly and said, "Tomorrow, you can continue to bet on me. I guarantee that you will make a lot of money." Seeing that Yun Chujio was so calm, the worry in Zhao Hui's heart lessened a little. This junior sister Yun had always turned a bad situation into a good one. Perhaps she could do it this time. Otherwise, he would bet more tomorrow? After Yun Chujio and Zhao Hui parted ways, they returned to their own courtyard. As soon as they pushed open the courtyard door, this fellow's good mood turned into rage. They saw that the drifters in the courtyard were actually tossing a puppet disc around. They were having a lot of fun. The most infuriating thing was that when the drifters saw that Yun Chujio had returned, not only did they not restrain themselves, they were even having more fun. They even deliberately threw the puppet disc near Yun Chujio. However, when Yun Chujio went to snatch it, they threw the puppet disc far away. Chapter 3972. The drifters are gone. Yun Chujio gritted her teeth. It was not too late for little Jio to take revenge. She would find the weaknesses of these drifters sooner or later and make them wish they were dead. Since their hometown was the sword pool, she would blow up the sword pool once she gained a firm foothold in the nameless sword sect. Let's see how they can continue to show off. Didn't this fellow think that if she blew up the sword pool, the nameless sword sect would strangle her to death? Yun Chujio simply ignored the drifters and turned around to enter the house. Although these drifters were mischievous, they usually wouldn't follow her into the house. They also knew when to stop. If they really pushed Yun Chujio into a corner, she would take out the recording stone and place it in the Buddhist scriptures. On the other hand, it was the idiot Buttface who shouted for Yun Chujio to let him out. He wanted to play with those drifters. Yun Chujio was so angry that she gritted her teeth. However, she felt that it was not a bad idea to have Buttface keep an eye on the drifters, so she kicked him into the yard. Yun Chujio was thinking about the match with Chen Bufan the next day when Buttface suddenly jumped in. "Little fairy, something must have happened. Those drifters and I were having fun, but they suddenly disappeared. Something must have happened. Did something happen to the sword pool?" Buttface thought that the drifters were quite fun, so he naturally did not want anything to happen to them. Yun Chujio was stunned at first, then she sneered, "It's good that those drifters have disappeared. Don't tell me you still think that I will help them." Seeing Yun Chujio's cold tone, Buttface was afraid that he would draw fire on himself. He immediately changed his tone. "Yes, it's good that those damn things have completely disappeared. If they have disappeared, we can plant flowers in the yard again." However, she remembered something. Since those drifters had disappeared, could she summon her 3 puppet discs back? Yun Chujio thought of this and immediately left the house. She was ready to go to the sword pool to summon the puppet discs back. After all, she had her spiritual sense in there. It would be terrible if it fell into the hands of others. But Face hurriedly followed behind her. He thought to himself, the little fairy said that she didn't care, but she still wanted to go and take a look. At this moment, the sky had already darkened. Yun Chujio didn't put but Face away and let him follow behind her. When Yun Chujio arrived at the sword pool, a full moon had already risen into the sky, and a clear light sprinkled on the sword pool. As it was already late at night, there were no disciples cultivating under the sword pool. Yun Chujio went straight to the edge of the sword pool and was surprised to find that there was no killing intent in the sword pool other than the sword light. Through the impenetrable sword light, Yun Chujio could vaguely see that 3 puppet discs were pressed under layers of treasured swords. Yun Chujio was about to summon the puppet discs. Unexpectedly, a shout came from behind her. Yun Chujio, what are you doing sneakily? I remember that I warned you not to go near the sword pool again. What are you trying to do even though you know it? Yun Chujio closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She turned around and saw Manager Li and a few disciples looking at her with gloomy faces, as if they were caught red-handed. Yun Chujio knew that she wouldn't be able to retrieve the puppet discs for the time being. Fortunately, if she didn't look closely, no one would notice the 3 puppet discs. It seemed that she had to think of a way to bring down Manager Li when she had time. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to retrieve the puppet discs in the future. Chapter 3973. As Yun Chujio thought about it, she put but Face into the spirit beast bag and said indifferently, Manager Li, I have checked the sect rules, but there is no such rule as you said. If you want to make things difficult for me, I advise you to add this rule into the sect rules and then come back to find trouble. It's late at night, I don't have time to waste with you. After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she walked to the flat ground under the sword pool. Without looking at Manager Li again, she swaggered away. Manager Li's face was gloomy like water, but he didn't have any conclusive evidence to convict Yun Chujio, so he had to ask his disciples to step up their patrols. Once they found Yun Chujio approaching the sword pool, they would report to him. After Yun Chujio returned to her courtyard, she felt that to achieve her goal, the most important thing was to improve her spiritual power. However, since the last time when the new cloud had left, no lightning had struck her. It was so hard not to be struck by lightning. Also, where did the murderous aura go? Could it be that the heavens had the eyes to take them all? Or could it be that they had gone to other places to do evil? Yun Chujio's thoughts ran wild for a while, and she fell asleep unknowingly. The next day, Yun Chujio had just eaten breakfast when the Identity Jade plate sent a message. Chen Bufan had issued a challenge to her and ordered her to arrive at the 2nd stage within an hour. Yun Chujio had already thought of a way to deal with Chen Bufan last night, so she left the courtyard unhurriedly and went to the square in the middle courtyard. Zhao Hui saw her and hurried over. Before he could say anything, Yun Chujio had already transferred 1 million upper-grade spirit stones to him to place a bet. Seeing this, Zhao Hui was too lazy to persuade her. He immediately went to the northeast corner to help Yun Chujio bet 1 million upper-grade spirit stones. He hesitated for a moment, gritted his teeth, and stomped his feet. He took out his 1 million upper-grade spirit stones and bet on Yun Chujio to win. He thought to himself, Junior Sister Yun, this is more than half of Senior Brother's fortune. You must win. Although they had lost the money last time, they were still certain that Yun Chujio was no match for Chen Bufan. The reason why Yun Chujio could win last time was because Wu Zhong was careless. This time, she would definitely lose. Therefore, they placed their bets on Chen Bufan. Zhao Hui turned around and left the betting area. When he arrived at the 2nd stage, Yun Chujio was collecting her debt. Senior Brother Chen, you owe me 900,000 high-grade spirit stones. Remember to pay me back. Otherwise, I will have to use your sect's resources to pay you back. Chen Bufan's face contorted with anger when he thought of what had happened that day. He gritted his teeth. Today, he had to take this opportunity to teach this bitch a lesson. He had gone too far. Senior brother Chen, it is only right and proper to pay the debt. You don't have to be angry with me. How about this? I am not an unreasonable person. Since you helped me pull the weeds, I will let you have 3 moves, how about that? Yun Chujio said with a smile. The moment Yun Chujio said that, Zhao Hui almost fell to the ground. Oh my god! You let Chen Bufan have 3 moves? You are seeking death by playing tricks. Is it too late for him to get the bet back? Chen Bufan was also stunned. Could it be that Yun Chujio did not sleep well last night and was talking nonsense now? However, it would be a waste if he did not take advantage of her. He immediately said, okay, since junior sister Yun is so gracious, I will not refuse. Let me have 3 moves according to what you said. Chapter 3974. Fight me when you get up. When the audience heard their conversation, they thought that Yun Chujio was an idiot. She was not as strong as Chen Bufan, and yet she dared to say that she would give him 3 moves. She was asking for it. On the other hand, they thought that Chen Bufan was being unreasonable. He was obviously bullying her. However, the disciples who placed their bets felt that it was great. It seemed that Chen Bufan was going to win for sure. Not only could they win back what they had lost the last time, but they could also earn a small sum of money. It was great. Zhao Hui saw that the situation was set in stone, and he was about to cry. His 1 million yuan. It had gone down the drain just like that. It was something that he had worked hard to save up. After all, the chance for the disciples of his sect to earn money was very small. 1 million yuan was already more than half of his fortune. He was pained and worried for Yun Chujio at the same time. Could it be that junior sister Yun had a fever? Otherwise, why would she talk nonsense? How could she possibly win against Chen Bufan in such a state? He could only hope that she would not be too severely injured. At this time, the steward in charge of the competition rang the bell and announced the start of the competition. Since Yun Chujio had said that she would let Chen Bufan have 3 moves, it was naturally Chen Bufan who would make the first move. Chen Bufan pulled out his sword and gave Yun Chujio a vicious look. He thought to himself, this stupid girl is asking for death. I can't blame her for that. She could only dodge and not fight back. Therefore, he had to use all his strength to defeat her in 3 moves, or even severely injure her. Thinking of this, Chen Bufan's originally fat body suddenly jumped forward nimbly. With a shake of his wrist, the sword in his hand stabbed toward Yun Chujio's lower abdomen. The crowd immediately booed. With such strength, she was still able to withstand 3 moves from Chen Bufan? She was simply courting death. Before Yun Chujio could steady herself, Chen Bufan's second sword arrived, and it was extremely fast. Yun Chujio rolled on the ground in a sorry state and barely managed to dodge the second attack. However, before she could get up, Chen Bufan's third attack had arrived. Since Yun Chujio said that she would give him 3 moves, Chen Bufan was not prepared to defend against this attack. Instead, he poured almost all of his spiritual power into the treasured sword in his hand, intending to heavily injure Yun Chujio. Zhao Hui closed his eyes. It was over. However, he did not hear Yun Chujio scream. Instead, he heard Chen Bufan scream. Zhao Hui opened his eyes in confusion. He saw Chen Bufan lying on the ground, blood flowing from his chest. His hands were trembling as he was taking pills. It was obvious that he was seriously injured. Yun Chujio, who was standing not far away from him, was wiping her sword with a faint smile on her face. What was going on? After Chen Bufan swallowed a few pills, he shouted, Yun Chujio, you bitch! Didn't you say that you would give me 3 moves? Why did you fight back in the 3rd move? If you didn't go back on your words, how could I have lost? Yun Chujio curled her lips and said, Idiot, don't you know that there is no such thing as a war without deceit? Also, a loss is a loss. How can you have so many excuses? If you have the ability, stand up and fight with me again. Chen Bufan was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Stand up and fight with her? He couldn't even stand up now, okay? What was the point of fighting? Chapter 3975. The drifter was back. The audience was also dumbfounded. This Yun Chujio was too cunning. They had agreed to let Chen Bufan use 3 moves. Why didn't it count? Wasn't this a blatant scam? Therefore, one of the disciples who had placed the bet shouted angrily, Yun Chujio, you are too shameless. You had agreed to let Chen Bufan use 3 moves. How could you go back on your words? That's right, you have no integrity. Your character is really despicable. Yun Chujio, don't you have any shame? If you still have any conscience, apologize to Chen Bufan right now and admit that you lost this round. The joy on Zhao Hu's face suddenly turned into worry. Junior sister Yun had become the target of public criticism. She wouldn't be able to take it, right? Just as Zhao Hui was worried, he heard Yun Chujio chuckle. You people are so interesting. First, I asked Chen Bufan to do me a favor. It's my duty to not give in. He's not my grandson, so why should I give in to him? Second, I said I would give him 3 moves, but this is a competition, not a game. Don't you know that there are all kinds of tricks in war? Don't tell me that when you are fighting with demonic beasts, you have to be honest with them. Thirdly, if you want to fight against injustice, then challenge me. I will accept any challenge. If you don't want to challenge me, then stop acting like a good person. Zhao Hui fed his worries to the dogs. A pervert like junior sister Yun did not know what embarrassment was and what embarrassment was. He was really thinking too much. When the surrounding disciples saw Yun Chujio's eloquence, although they all looked displeased, they didn't want to challenge her. Therefore, the discussion quieted down. Yun Chujio chuckled and confirmed the result of the competition with the steward. Then she jumped off the stage. Zhao Hui was so happy that he could not close his mouth. Ha, ha. Fortunately, he listened to junior sister Yun's words and placed 1,000,000 yuan on the bet. This time, he was going to make a fortune. It was also from this time onwards that Zhao Hui unconditionally obeyed Yun Chujio's words because he felt that this junior sister Yun was really omnipotent. The other disciples who placed their bets watched as Yun Chujio and Zhao Hui made a fortune. They secretly gritted their teeth. Fuck, the next time Yun Chujio participated in a competition, they would bet on Yun Chujio no matter what. Yun Chujio and Zhao Hui ate a big meal in the canteen and then returned to their dormitories. The moment Yun Chujio pushed open the courtyard door, she could not help but be stunned. Those drifters had returned. Yun Chujio gritted her teeth. She had said that these drifters would not disappear so easily. They might have gone to harm others yesterday. Buttface was very happy. He thought that he would never see these drifters again, so he immediately began to play with them. Yun Chujio scolded the drifters a few times and put the matter aside for the time being. Her priority now was to find a way to increase her spiritual power. Since Wu Yun had not come to strike her, she could only rely on herself. Chapter 3976, Level 5 of Spiritual Connection. In order to prevent the drifters from causing trouble during her breakthrough, Yun Chujio placed the Saraira in front of her and released Xiao Hanyo and a few others to protect her. Of course, Yun Chujio would not release such a malicious person like the kitten. After giving some instructions, Yun Chujio sat cross-legged and meditated. She ordered Guai Chao, the great void mirror, and the black bead to release the power of lightning to wash away her dantian. Of course, this guy's so-called order was actually a humble plea, because each of the 3 ancestors was more stingy than the other. How could it be so easy to spit out the power of lightning after eating it? It was not that Yun Chujio did not think of letting little Wu Yun strike her, but first, she was prepared to use little Wu Yun to escape at the critical moment, so she did not want to waste little Wu Yun's power of lightning on improving her spiritual power. Secondly, the lightning power that Wu Yun absorbed was limited, and it was not enough for her to break through. Therefore, she could only plead with the 3 ancestors of Guai Chao. Finally, under Yun Chujio's persuasion, Guai Chao and the others finally began to spit out the lightning power, continuously washing Yun Chujio's dantian. Because the intensity of the lightning was not strong enough, Yun Chujio used a full day and 2 nights to break through to the 5th level of psychic power. This fellow was not too happy. In her heart, She thought that she had almost used up all the black pearls and the rest of their stock. If she still did not think of a way to get struck by lightning, these three fellows would probably rebel. However, how could she attract the heavenly lightning? This fellow began to recall every time she was struck by lightning. Other than the routine killing of her by Tian Dao, there were only a few other situations. She cursed Tian Dao to the point that it was like a fountain of blood. She had contracted a strange beast or a divine beast. She had obtained a heaven-defying treasure. Yun Chujio felt that cursing Tian Dao was the most convenient of these. Moreover, she had never cursed Tian Dao before in the northern continent, so she might as well give it a try. Thus, this fellow walked to the center of the courtyard and began to curse at the sky. Tian Dao, you old bastard. Haven't you always liked to hack me? Come on, hack me. If you don't hack me, you'll be a grandson. Grandson, did you hear grandma talking to you? You little bastard. No, if Tian Dao was a little bastard, wouldn't she be a turtle grandma? This guy coughed dryly and continued to curse, Tian Dao, you're shameless. If you have the ability, chop me again. Buttface and the others were already used to Yun Chujio's perversion, but they didn't know about the murderous aura. At first, when they saw Yun Chujio coming out of the house, they all scrambled to jump around her. However, when they heard this fellow's curses, they all flew out of the courtyard trembling in fear. Yun Chujio's eyes lit up. These drifters are actually afraid of this? If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have gone to buy any Buddhist scriptures. This fellow cursed until his throat became hoarse, but he didn't see even half a dark cloud floating over. The sky was clear as a sheet, and there was nothing abnormal about it. Wu Yun stroked her chin. It seemed that the first rule was useless. So, was it a contract with a beast or a divine beast? There were beasts ready for use, and that was the group of king-level fire spirit beasts. However, the risk was a little high, so it wasn't worth it. Divine beast? Wu Yun immediately thought of Cat Cub. The matter of Cat Cub had dragged on for a long time, and it was time to end it. Thus, she summoned the kittens out of the spirit beast pouch. Yun Chujio looked at the kittens coldly and said slowly, Kittens, should I call you kittens or white tiger? Chapter 3977. Exasperated Kitten. The kitten did not expect Yun Chujio to suddenly have a falling out with it. It was momentarily stunned, so it did not say anything. Yun Chujio chuckled again. Aren't you usually very good with words? Why have you become mute now? Xiao Hanyo and the rest looked at the kitten with schadenfreude, thinking, damn it. They thought that they had acted well. Little did they know that the cat's tail had long been exposed. No, the tiger's tail. The cat cub finally came to its senses and knew that no matter how much it tried to explain, it would be useless. It sneered. That's right, I am the divine beast white tiger. Little girl, since you already know, I advise you to let me go immediately or else. Or else what? You think you can threaten me? Yun Chujio stepped on the cat's tail with her foot and sneered. The cat said angrily, Stupid girl, don't be so proud. If you force me again, I'll devour that idiot's soul and burn him to the ground. Yun Chujio's foot crushed the cat's tail a few times. After hearing the cat scream, she said, Do you know what I hate the most? Someone threatening me. Mutual destruction? Alright, I want to see if the so-called divine beast, the white tiger, has the courage to fight to the death. Let me see if you can devour it now. The cat did not expect Yun Chujio to not fall for it. It said with a stern expression, Don't force me. If you force me again, I will really devour it. Buttface said mockingly, Teeth, a divine beast. You don't speak elegantly at all. You want to talk about me? Pooey. Who doesn't know that you are a 10,000-year-old single tiger? For you. The kitten was so angry that it was trembling. It glared at Buttface. However, Buttface was also an adult fierce beast. He was not afraid of its fierce gaze at all. He said even more fiercely, What are you staring at? You are a godly beast, but you actually took over my body. How shameless. Do you really think that the little fairy didn't realize that you are a fake? The little fairy was only using you. and you foolishly helped the little fairy to come up with strategies and kill the enemy. TSKSK, what an idiot. The kitten was already very angry after being exposed. Now that it was angered by Buttface, it immediately revealed its sharp claws and clawed at Yun Chujia's leg. It had already thought about it. Since it had already been exposed, it might as well take this opportunity to escape from this stupid girl and devour the original owner when it was safe. It had thought about it well, but it had forgotten that although the dumb cuties present might not be as strong as it, there were many of them. Moreover, there was still Yun Chujio. Hence, after a short while, the kitten was subdued on the ground. Not only was its body covered in blood, even its fur was burnt by the little black bird's nirvana fire. It was as miserable as it could be. Yun Chujio kicked it. I'll give you two choices. One is your so-called mutual destruction, and the other is for me to find you a new shell. You can use it for now, and then think of a way to use your remaining eggshell to reconstruct your body. Which one do you choose? The kitten thought to itself, even if it was a fool, it would choose the second option. No matter what, it had to save its life first. Hence, it changed its previous arrogance and said submissively, I choose the second option. Yun Chujio pursed her lips. Then she took out a wind-blade rabbit from the great void mystic realm, indicating that the white tiger's soul could come out of the kitten's body. Chapter 3978 could not be published. The cat cub nodded and began to use a secret technique. He wanted to separate his soul from the original cat cub's soul. However, 15 minutes passed, an hour passed, and 2 hours passed. Even when Yun Chujio was getting impatient from waiting, the white tiger's soul did not come out from the cat cub's body. Yun Chujio's eyes could not help but turn cold. White tiger, do you want to die? The kitten did not feel anything. Its glass-like eyes were very dull, as if it was dumbfounded. Yun Chujio frowned. Just as she was about to ask again, the kitten suddenly howled in despair. Meow, how can this be? I can't peel off my spirit. Meow, I can't get out. I can't get out. Yun Chujio and the other dumb cuties were confused. What was this? Did the white tiger think that he could escape and get away with it? Wasn't he too naive? Just as everyone was thinking, the kitten suddenly crashed into the wall. I can't live anymore. I don't want to be a target. However, the next moment, the kitten stopped in its tracks and wanted to turn back. Then, it rushed forward again as if there were two forces fighting inside its body. Dog 2's eyes lit up, it gloated and said, Little fairy, I suddenly remembered that the White Tiger clan seems to have a secret technique that can attach one's own spiritual sense to another spiritual sense. A spiritual sense can be divided into two souls, one light and one dark. No one can tell them apart. But, it seems that something bad happened to this idiot. He really deserves it. Yun Chujio glared at him and showed a worried expression. She was not worried about the white tiger, but for the original kitten. After a struggle, the kitten lay on the ground with a dull look. It did not move for a long time, just like a dead cat. Dog 2 sneakily moved in front of the kitten and used its claws to pull it. The kitten didn't react at all, looking like it had nothing to live for. Yun Chujio said coldly, Tell me, what's going on? Even if you pretend to be dead, you can't change the truth. If you tell me, there might be a glimmer of hope. A glimmer of light shone in the kitten's dull eyes. Although this stupid girl was a weak chicken, she was full of evil. Perhaps there really was a way. Therefore, the kitten said with a sobbing tone, the secret techniques of our White Tiger clan are always effective. But for some reason, I tried countless times just now, but I was unable to separate my soul from the original stupid soul. The worst part is that a part of my soul actually began to fuse. Before Yun Chujio could speak, Dog 2 rolled on the ground in joy. I'm dying of laughter. You're starting to fuse? Aren't you two becoming one in disguise? Who knows, you might give birth to a baby in a few days. The kitten was already depressed to death. Now that it saw that Dog 2 was talking nonsense again, it immediately pounced on Dog 2 in anger. Dog 2 only had a good mouth now. It was no match for the kitten. It hurriedly hid behind Yun Chujio in fear and continued to say shamelessly, "Am I wrong? If your souls finally fuse together, won't you two become one? No wonder you keep calling me daddy and meowing. It turns out that you were influenced by the kitten's soul." Chapter 3979. Cheongchi's father. When the kitten heard Buttface's words, it immediately burst into tears. It didn't have the time to chase after Buttface anymore. It was an ancient divine beast, but in the end, it lifted a rock and smashed its own foot. It was likely that it wouldn't be it anymore in the near future. It recalled that when it was in the boundless ice abyss, the kitten had warned it that if it didn't leave its body immediately, it would regret it. Could it be that the original owner, that idiot, knew something? Thinking of this, the white tiger hurriedly used its spiritual sense to communicate with the kitten's spiritual sense. However, after a battle just now, it suppressed the kitten's spiritual sense. Now, there was no response at all. It was unknown whether it was because it was injured, or it was simply unwilling to pay attention to it. The white tiger cried miserably. It tragically realized that even if it wanted to commit suicide now, it was impossible. Because at the critical moment, the kitten's spiritual sense would come out to take control of the body. It was really begging for death. Yun Chujio and the other dumb cubs heard the white tiger's intermittent crying and also heard most of it. Everyone only had one comment about the white tiger's fate, and that was that it deserved it. It was just that the original cat cub had suffered such an undeserved disaster. Yun Chujio was originally in a bad mood because she could not attract the heavenly thunder. Now that she heard the white tiger's incessant crying, she immediately kicked it and said, "This is all your own fault. Why are you crying? If you want to cry, it's the kittens that are crying, okay?" The white tiger now saw Yun Chujio as its last hope. It did not care whether Yun Chujio was disgusted or not. It used its claws to hug Yun Chujio's boots and cried, "Master, no, little fairy, great-grandmother, please save me. As long as you can save me from this damn body, I will repay you properly. I will do whatever you want me to do." Yun Chujio was naturally willing to pull the white tiger out of the cat cub's body, but according to what it said, the souls of the two had begun to fuse. What else could she do? Seeing Yun Chujio's helpless look, the white tiger then begged Buttface and the other dumb cuties. It was in a desperate situation, and as long as it could regain its freedom, it would accept it even if it had to lower itself. The other dumb cuties were silent. Only Buttface rolled his eyes and said, "It's not that there's no way, but..." When the white tiger heard that Buttface had a way, it immediately pounced in front of Buttface and said, "Brother Cheongchi, no, Father Cheongchi, do you have any good ideas?" Yun Chujio laughed out loud. Was the white tiger's brain damaged from the shock? Buttface was also shocked by this father. He quickly waved his paw and said, "Scram to the side. I don't have a foolish son like you." White tiger thought to himself, "What the fuck? Do you think I'm willing to be so humble? Wasn't it just to show my sincere attitude?" White tiger said a bunch of nice things again, which finally satisfied Buttface. "Idiot, according to what you said, the cat cub has a trace of the Chilin's bloodline. You must know that the Chilin is an existence that is comparable to the four great divine beasts. Its greatest divine ability is the shape-shifting demon. It is the nemesis of your white tiger clan. The secret techniques of your white tiger clan naturally can't do anything to it. Instead, it suffered a backlash. As time passes, I'm afraid the cat cub will be fine. Your soul will be devoured bit by the cat cub." Buttface shook his head as he spoke. He felt that he was the most knowledgeable person in the world. After all, no one had lived longer than him, right? Chapter 3980. The Great Secret. The more the white tiger heard, the more frightened it became. In the end, it couldn't even stand properly. It only had a portion of the inheritance, so how could it know that the Chilin was the nemesis of their white tiger clan? If it had known this would happen, it would have rather been contracted by that idiot in red. No matter what, it was much better than the current situation. With a trembling voice, it asked, "Brother Cheongchi, then Then is there any way to resolve it? Buttface glared at it fiercely. Are you stupid? What Cheongchi? In the future, call me by my big name, Buttface, do you hear me? The corner of the white tiger's mouth twitched violently. This Cheongchi was simply a psychopath. Did it think that Buttface was a noble and cold name? No wonder it was a fierce beast, it was really a country bumpkin. Of course, the white tiger was only thinking about it in its heart, but it said, yes, Buttface. Then, is there any way to resolve it? Buttface wagged its tail proudly. There is definitely a way, and that is the soul transformation technique. However, I have only heard of this soul transformation technique. When you find someone who knows the soul transformation technique, you will be saved. The white tiger was immediately rendered speechless. There was no difference in not saying anything after a long time. By the time they found someone who knew the soul transformation technique, there was an 80% chance that he would have been devoured by the kitten. His life was so miserable, just as the white tiger was in a miserable state. Buttface continued, however, you don't have to be too sad. Don't you still have your eggshell? After you're devoured by the kitten, perhaps the eggshell will give birth to a new white tiger. You can't be considered to have lost a descendant. The white tiger was so angry that it was twitching. How could it be the same? The newly born white tiger was not him at all. At that time, he would completely disappear from the world. Buttface continued, however, the eggshell might not be able to give birth to a new white tiger. Because the kittens have a trace of your white tiger's bloodline, and it has devoured your soul, perhaps it will directly become a white tiger. Moreover, if the kitten is to combine with a tiger-type demon beast in the future, perhaps it will directly give birth to a white tiger. Every time Dog 2 mentioned a possibility, the white tiger felt that the future was getting more and more bleak, and the entire tiger felt that it was not good. Yun Chujio did not have the slightest sympathy for the white tiger. If it was not because of the kitten, she would have killed it long ago. The white tiger obviously knew this. It knew that if it could not give a reason to move Yun Chujio now, Yun Chujio would definitely allow the kitten's spiritual sense to devour it bit by bit until it completely dissipated. It said to Yun Chujio with snot and tears, "Little fairy, I have done something wrong before. All the mistakes are my fault. I don't expect you to forgive me, but please give me a chance to turn over a new leaf." Yun Chujio just curled her lips and didn't say anything. White Tiger saw that Yun Chujio was indifferent, so it gritted its teeth and said, "Little fairy, there's a big secret in my inheritance. As long as you promise to help me find someone who knows the soul transformation technique, I'll tell you this big secret." Yun Chujio glanced at it and said, "I'm not interested." White Tiger was about to cry. How could it encounter such a pervert who refused to accept both hard and soft tactics? White Tiger could only thicken its skin and pretend that it did not hear Yun Chujio's words. Then it said, "According to my inheritance, all the continents will usher in a huge catastrophe. Only by gathering the power of the 4 great divine beasts and the 4 great ferocious beasts can it be resolved. Therefore, my life is still useful. After all, whether it is a kitten or an eggshell, it is not something that can be done in a short period of time. If I die, I will not be able to find a replacement in a short period of time. A person like you who cares about all the people in the world won't just stand by and watch people die, right? So please save me." Chapter 3981. White Tiger who survived a calamity. Yun Chujio swept a glance at the white tiger. A hint of guilt flashed across the white tiger's eyes. Naturally, it did not escape Yun Chujio's eyes. She knew that the white tiger's words were definitely exaggerated, but in general, it should not be lying. She recalled that the 4 great divine beasts had been trapped in the East Phoenix country and other places, and their personalities had changed drastically. The originally compassionate divine beasts had become lustful, greedy, and savage. If this was not a conspiracy, who would believe it? Furthermore, the 4 great beasts were even more miserable. Cheong Chi and Tao Wu had become remnant souls under the control of someone. Tao Tai had become her spiritual beast for some unknown reason, and Hun Dun did not know where he ended up. Could it be that someone did this on purpose? If what the white tiger said was true and the catastrophe really required the power of the four great divine beasts and the four great beasts, then even if the four great divine beasts were released, they would still be remnant souls. Moreover, they were black remnant souls. It was likely that they would not be of much use. Not to mention, the four great beasts were nowhere to be found. Where could they find them? Yun Chujio thought of the divine devil hall again. It seemed like someone was playing a game of chess. Everything was just a chess piece. She thought of the huge hand that tore through the void and left Su Yenran. She thought of the powerful enemy that Di Biming mentioned. She felt that there was a huge conspiracy in the dense fog. What she saw was just the tip of the iceberg. When the white tiger saw that Yun Chujio seemed to be a little distracted, it was so anxious that it could not take it anymore. Dear ancestor, please give me a straightforward answer. Are you going to save it or not? Finally, Yun Chujio came back to her senses. She looked at the white tiger and asked, but face, other than the soul transformation technique, is there any way to maintain the current situation for the time being? But face laughed evilly. That depends on the kitten. If the white tiger can persuade the kitten to let it go temporarily, then the kitten's soul will not continue to devour its soul. However, the kittens must hate it to death now. Whether it can persuade the kittens or not will depend on itself. When the white tiger heard Buttface's words, it felt like its head was buzzing. If it was the kittens, it would not let it go either, alright? This method was no different from not having it. However, the white tiger's brain was still quite smart. It immediately pleaded, "Little fairy, the kittens will definitely listen to you. Help me plead for mercy. As long as it is willing to let me go, I am willing to be its subordinate for the rest of my life." Yun Chujio frowned. Although what the white tiger said about the calamity was somewhat exaggerated, the white tiger's life should still be preserved. If what it said was true, it would not be good. Hence, Yun Chujio said to the white tiger, "When the cat cub is willing to communicate with you, hand over the control of your soul to the cat cub. I will talk to it." The white tiger immediately burst into tears of joy. This feeling of having survived a disaster was too damn complicated. Yun Chujio looked at the white tiger's crying and laughing face and could not help but think of the little bastard. The little bastard would not have a change in appearance for no reason. Could it also have been possessed by the black tortoise? Yun Chujio immediately took out the little bastard and asked the white tiger, "Look at the little bastard situation. Is it the same as you? Was it possessed by the black tortoise?" The little bastard heard Yun Chujio's words and felt both afraid and wronged. "Master, am I really going to become a monster?" The white tiger looked and smelled and finally said, "The black tortoise clan doesn't have the secret techniques of our white tiger clan. It shouldn't have been possessed. Instead, it seems to have been swallowed by the little bastard." Chapter 3982. You won't have any friends like this. The moment the words left the mouth of the white tiger, Yun Chujio and the other dumb cuties, especially the little bastard, were all dumbfounded. Among all of Yun Chujio's dumb cuties, the most useless one was none other than the little bastard. How could it possibly devour the remnant soul of the black tortoise? Moreover, when Cheong Chi and the others were fighting with the black tortoise, the little bastard had always been in the spirit beast pouch and had not had any direct contact with the remnant soul of the black tortoise and the black tortoise egg. How did it devour the remnant soul of the black tortoise? Meng Yanshou, who was at the side, said somewhat sourly, "Little fairy, I remember that you gave the little bastard a small piece of the black tortoise's shell back then." Yun Chujio nodded. "That's right. At that time, in order to make up for the piece of the turtle shell of the little bastard's mother, I spent a lot of effort to cut off a small piece of the black tortoise's shell. If it wasn't for the fact that the turtle shell was already somewhat damaged, I wouldn't have been able to cut it off. After that, didn't the little bastard use the chant to stimulate the turtle shell and bring us out of the stone hall?" When the little bastard heard Yun Chujio's words, he deliberately took out the small turtle shell and said pitifully, "Master is right. This is the turtle shell." When the white tiger saw the turtle shell that the little bastard took out, he revealed a thoughtful expression. He then asked the little bastard the chant to command the turtle shell and immediately said, No wonder. Little fairy, do you know that although the black tortoise's turtle shell is very big, one of its parts was where it hid its inner core when it was alive, and it was the weakest part of the entire turtle shell. This turtle shell is the one that I mentioned. According to what you said, the black tortoise was already at a disadvantage back then. It must have used some kind of camouflage. The ones that were left to fight with Tao Wu and the rest were just illusions, but the remnant souls were hidden in this turtle shell. It even used a secret technique to make the remaining turtle shell into an empty egg. It planned to hide it from the world and take the opportunity to possess it. However, I did not expect that the little bastard was forced to use the chant to activate its mother's turtle shell. That chant must have been passed down from the ancient times. Not only can it activate the turtle shell, but it can also absorb the power attached to the turtle shell. Hence, the soul of the unlucky black tortoise was absorbed and swallowed by the little bastard. Once the white tiger said such a mouthful of words, Yun Chujio and the other dumb cubs reacted for a long time before they finally understood what was going on. If that was really the case, they could only say that black tortoise was really unlucky. After a long silence, Yun Chujio finally asked the little bastard, "Little bastard, did anything unusual happen after you activated the turtle shell?" The little bastard cried and said, "Little fairy, ever since I left the stone hall, I felt that I was no longer me. But I didn't dare to say it. So I ate the wrong thing. I'm really going to turn into a monster." Yun Chujio glared at it. "Why are you crying? It's your fortune to be able to turn into a divine beast, black tortoise. Besides, it's just a change in appearance and the core hasn't changed. What's there to cry about?" Dog 2 had turned from an ancient fierce beast into a dog. Was it crying? Dehua had turned from an ancient fierce beast into a pig. Was it crying? There was also curly hair. Meng Yanshou had turned into a rabbit. Didn't he have to suffer too? No matter what, you're still a bastard, right? What's there to cry about? Dog 2, Meng Yanshou, little fairy, do you know that you won't have any friends if you expose people's shortcomings so blatantly? The little bastard stopped after being yelled at by Yun Chujio. Its round little eyes lit up. Yes, it was about to turn into a divine beast, the black tortoise. It would no longer be a little trash that would drag it down in the future. This was a great thing. Chapter 3983 Sword Formation. The matter between the cat cub and the little bastard had come to light. Yun Chujio finally felt relieved. Otherwise, she would feel uneasy. However, the matter of the heavenly lightning had not been resolved. Could it be that she could only take the risk of contracting a king-level fire spirit beast? Not only was it too risky, but even if she contracted it, it might not attract the heavenly lightning. Therefore, Yun Chujio thought about it and decided to temporarily give up on this idea. She was prepared to wait and see. Who knows, she might be struck by lightning one day. On this day, Yun Chujio was practicing her swordsmanship in the courtyard with those drifters. Her identity jade tablet started to vibrate. When she reached into her spiritual sense, she realized that it was from Zhao Hui. "Junior sister Yun, you have been absent from the swordsmanship class for a few days. Wan Qingba said that if you don't show up for the next class, your score will be deducted during the year-end assessment." Yun Chujio frowned. Could it be that that scum Wan Qingba was trying to play some tricks? However, she did miss a few sword arts lessons, so she went over to see what he wanted to do. Therefore, the next day, she skipped to the sword hall in the middle courtyard. Wan Qingba saw her coming over, but he didn't say anything. He continued to teach the group the 7 stars sword technique. When the class was about to end, Wan Qingba said in a deep voice, "You may know that although the sword techniques of our nameless sword sect are top-notch in the Atlas continent, the most powerful sword formation of our nameless sword sect is the sword formation. In the sect, only inner sect disciples are qualified to learn the sword formation. After learning it, they can form a sword formation to defend against external enemies at the critical moment. However, not all inner sect disciples are qualified to learn the sword formation. From today onwards, the disciples whose names I read will practice the sword formation together with the older disciples." After saying that, Wan Qingba began to announce the name list. Out of the 50 people, only 10 were selected. Zhao Hui and Yun Chujio were among them. Yun Chujio smelled a conspiracy inside. She did not think that Wan Qingba would disregard the past and recommend her to learn sword formations. He was probably planning something bad. However, she could not be decisive. Moreover, she was very interested in sword formations. She had heard from Zhao Hui that the nameless sword sect's sword formations were extremely powerful. Once they encountered a strong enemy, the power of the sword formations would be displayed. It was much more powerful than a one-on-one fight. The teaching of the sword array was also in the sword hall of the middle court. It was still taught by Wan Qingba. When Yun Chujio saw the 5 senior disciples who were assigned to her and Zhao Hu's group, she immediately understood Wan Qingba's intention. Among the 5 senior disciples, there was not only Chen Bufan and his 3 best friends, but also Li Zhuangji. Was he planning to borrow someone else's knife to kill him? Although Chen Bufan had been stabbed in the chest by Yun Chujio last time, it only looked dangerous. It was not a serious injury, much lighter than Wu Zhong's injury. When Chen Bufan saw Yun Chujio, his eyes suddenly shone with a vicious light. It was inevitable that he would be accidentally injured when practicing the sword array. When the time came, don't blame him. Li Zhuangji had been frightened by the nightmare and the kill word in the yard. He could not wait to get the discipline hall to release Yun Chujio from the bitter cold cave. However, after he calmed down, he felt that he was making a mountain out of a molehill. In particular, when he discovered that the word kill in the courtyard was written with a poison added with honey, he was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He knew that he had been fooled. However, no matter how he investigated, he still couldn't find out who did it. However, it was ultimately related to Yun Chujio. This was especially so for this bitch. She actually didn't destroy the lone slip. This time, she took the opportunity to learn the sword formation. She must be taught a lesson. Chapter 3984. The Big Dipper Sword Formation. The sword formation that Yun Chujio and the others were learning was the Big Dipper Sword Formation. It was also the most flexible sword formation among the sword formations of the nameless sword sect. The 7 people corresponded to the 7 stars of the Big Dipper: Tianshu, Tianxian, Tianji, Tianquan, Yuheng, Kaiyang, and Yaoguang. Tianshu was the leader of the 7 people and also the initiator of the sword formation attack. Li Zhuangji had the highest spiritual power among the 7, and because of manager Li, Chen Bufan and the others didn't dare to offend him, so they naturally chose Tianshu. Chen Bufan and the others couldn't wait to choose Tianxian, Tianji, Tianquan, and Yuheng, leaving Kaiyang and Yaoguang to Zhao Hui and Yun Chujio. Zhao Hu's heart sank. Although he had never learned sword formation, he had heard that the most dangerous position in the Big Dipper sword formation was Yaoguang, followed by Kaiyang, which could be abandoned by the sword formation at any time. This was because even if the Big Dipper sword formation lost 2 people, it could still become a slightly weaker 5-element sword formation. Li Zhuangji and the others were clearly bullying him and junior sister Yun. Whether it was a competition in the future or training outside, wouldn't he and junior sister Yun be abandoned by then? Just as Zhao Hui was thinking, Yun Chujio took the initiative to choose Yaoguang and left Kaiyang to Zhao Hui. Wan Qingba had been watching coldly from the side. He naturally wouldn't say anything. This was the result of his long-planned plan. Although Yun Chujio, this stinky girl, was hard to deal with, he didn't even need to do it himself if he wanted to take care of her. He just needed to use his brain a little and there would be plenty of people to help him get rid of her. Wan Qingba waited until the 5 groups had chosen their positions before he began to explain the Big Dipper sword formation. The Big Dipper sword formation still used the 7-star sword technique, but it had to be combined with the changes in the positions in order to multiply the power of the sword technique. Wan Qingba gave a simple explanation and let another group of older disciples demonstrate it. Then he said, "When you go back, you must practice diligently. I will take the test in a month's time. If there are disciples who do not meet the requirements, they will not be qualified to learn the sword formation in the future. Don't think that this is a trivial matter. If you are not qualified to learn the sword formation, then you will not be qualified to become a true disciple in the future. You can decide what you want to do." After saying that, Wan Qingbo turned around and left the sword hall. Chen Bufan pursed his lips and said, "Some people have such low spiritual power. I'm afraid that they can only wait to be eliminated. Fortunately, during the assessment, we will specifically examine each disciple and not directly eliminate a particular group. Otherwise, we will be really unlucky." Chen Bufan's three friends were about to agree with him when they saw Yun Chujio holding a large kitchen knife and placing it on Chen Bufan's neck. She was so fast that they didn't even have time to react. Most importantly, who would have thought that Yun Chujio would attack him at the slightest disagreement? Chen Bufan was scared silly. He stammered, "Yun Chujio, what are you trying to do? This is not a competition stage. If you hurt me, you won't be able to get better." Yun Chujio curled her lips. "I just want to ask you, who was the trash you were talking about just now?" Chen Bufan did not dare to admit that he was talking about Yun Chujio. He gritted his teeth and said with a flushed face, I was talking about myself. You let go of me." Yun Chujio snorted coldly. "So you were talking about yourself? Then you are quite self-aware. You are indeed a trash. Senior brother Zhao, let's go." After saying that, Yun Chujio left the sword hall with Zhao Hui, who had a confused look on his face. Chapter 3985 The Big Fool, Yun Chujio, had arrived. Chen Bufan's chubby face was filled with shame and anger. He looked at Yun Chujio's back and gnashed his teeth in anger. His three best friends cursed, "This bitch is too arrogant. Senior brother Chen, you don't have to be angry. We have plenty of opportunities to teach her a lesson. If they come to us to practice the sword formation, we will find all kinds of reasons to ignore them. When the time comes, they will definitely fail the test. That's right. It will be too good for her if she doesn't pass the test. After all, trash like her has no chance of becoming a true disciple. When the time comes, we will let her suffer some losses and let her learn a lesson." Right. Anyway, the two of them are at Yaoguang and Kaiyang. It is normal for them to be abandoned. It is also inevitable for them to be accidentally injured. Li Zhuangzi's eyes revealed a trace of viciousness as he listened to their conversation. What they said was right. It was inevitable for them to be accidentally injured. On the other side, Zhao Hui, who was brought away by Yun Chujio, had a worried expression on his face. "Junior sister Yun, Li Zhuangzi and the other three are clearly bullying us. Not to mention that the positions given to us are abandoned. The main reason is that it's impossible for them to practice sword techniques with us. At that time, we can only wait to be eliminated." Although Zhao Hui did not expect to become a successor disciple in the future, he was also unwilling to give up the opportunity to learn sword formations. Other than the Big Dipper sword formation, the Nameless Sword sect also had many powerful sword formations that he had long yearned for. Yun Chujio laughed lightly. "So what if they practice together or not? There are plenty of people who will accompany us to practice. Let's go. We'll go to the bounty hall to issue a mission. A large number of people will compete to accompany us to practice." Zhao Hui was stunned at first, then he was delighted. Yes, there were a lot of people in the inner sect who knew the Big Dipper sword formation. They could easily gather 7 people. Why should they be bullied by them? Therefore, the two of them immediately issued a mission at the bounty hall in the middle court. Soon, they selected 5 disciples to train with them in the Big Dipper sword formation. When Chen Bufan and the others heard the news, they were so angry that they were twitching. This little girl had too many ideas. She actually thought of such a method. But what could she do? When the time came for the assessment, she would be eliminated if she was casually tripped up. In the next period of time, Yun Chujio would only practice her sword array. She did not have the time to deal with those drifters. Those drifters could only see Yun Chujio at night. They all moved closer to Yun Chujio, feeling wronged. However, Yun Chujio did not care about them at all. When they were annoyed, this fellow began to curse Tian Dao, scaring the drifters into fleeing in all directions. However, as time passed, the drifters saw that no matter how Yun Chujio cursed Tian Dao, nothing unusual happened, so they became numb. That evening, Yun Chujio still cursed Tian Dao a few times. The drifters did not pay any attention to it and continued to approach Yun Chujio. However, they were scared away by the sudden pressure. Yun Chujio looked up and was so happy that she could not take it anymore. That silly cloud had finally come again. Wu Yun in the sky was in a good mood too. It had made an agreement with Yun Chujio that it would help Yun Chujio trick other dark clouds to come over. If Yun Chujio caught Yun Yi, she would give it to Wu Yun. It came here this time to get its 2 cloud wings and Wu Yun's cloud wings. It was beautiful just thinking about it. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. There was no other way to hide the fact that she had been struck by lightning. Since that was the case, let it be. However, she still had to hide what she had to hide. Putting everything else aside, she was afraid that she would not be able to steal another cloud wing today. It was such a pity. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.